Hey folks, here. Today I want to talk to you about the War of the Immortals and specifically about the Animist, one of the new classes that's featured in the book. Now, the Animist is akin to kind of like a witch, just they're way more in tune with the spirits around them that help them do their bidding, that guide them along their way. Then the witch is more with their familiar and their patrons and stuff. So, but otherwise it's kind of the same vein. Now, I would like to thank Paizo. They did give me a free copy of the PDF. They did not sponsor this video though, but they did give me a copy early. I had to read through it multiple times, and I have under no compulsion of what I have to say. There's no script, no nothing that they need me to do. This is just my opinions on the class. So the book is releasing on October 30th. And so check with your favorite local game store for the book. There's online, the PDF on Paizo's website is $19.99 US, which is about 25-ish dollars Canadian. VTTs will likely follow in a week or two, and Archives of Nethys and Path Builder will likely have these in a few weeks to add the crunch parts to them, which would be the classes and some of the rules. It won't have any of the lore though. So as with the Exemplar, this is one of the classes I would call advanced in a way, because this is not something I would have someone who is new to Pathfinder, new to role-playing, pick up as a character. I would have that person look at the Player Core 2. I'm always of the opinion that you're better off starting with the core rules and learning the game before you start getting into, funkier classes, things with way more moving parts. And this character has a lot of moving parts, a lot of things you have to learn about it. So this is one I would probably not recommend for brand new players, but to each their own. You as a GM will know your players better. Players will know their level of engagement, what they will be able to understand and pick up quickly. So that's up to you guys. The Animist is basically a spirit guide, a spirit guardian. They manifest apparitions around them, whether people see them or not. That'll be up to the player's choice. Most of the time they isn't. So there'll be that crazy hermit, that Baba Yaga type person that you wouldn't normally hang out with. So this will be very interesting. They get a lot of fun stuff, and we're going to get into this. They are only trained in simple weapons, unarmed attacks. They only are good in light and medium armor and unarmored defense. So they're not meant to be a frontline character, even with some of the powers of their apparitions. Now, one of the biggest features is the apparition attunement. And what they have right off the hop is they get to attune to two apparitions, which we're going to get into in a little bit. One is their primary, one is their secondary. Now, this is important because certain abilities only trigger with their primary apparition. Now, they have two to start. They gain one more at 7th level, and they gain a 4th at 15th level. So at 15th level, you will be attuned to 4 of them, 1 being your primary, 3 being your extra, your secondary, tertiary, quadratic apparition. When you refocus, you can change which of your current attuned apparitions is your primary and which one is your, becomes your secondary and stuff. During your daily preparations, you can change which one that you have. Now, the reason that I say this is a very complex character is you will have access to all of them, and on your daily preparations, you can change any one of them out and make one your primary, one your secondary. And then of course at 15th level, you have up to 4 of them. So every single day you can change them. Now, a lot of the times what you're going to end up doing as an Animist is you're going to have pretty much your set primary one. It's going to be the one you're probably going to be most comfortable with. The one you think you're going to use the most often, has the lores or the spells that you're looking for, etc. But you might switch them out depending on, you're going into a social situation, you're going into an investigation situation, where you are in the world. Are you in a major city? Are you in the wilderness? Are you in a dungeon? So those kind of things can swap every single time, and you get to choose every single day on your preparation out of the list. You're not confined to only having 2 that you always have to have. You can swap these around all the time. That's why I'm saying this is a very complex character, especially for a new player, because there is a lot of apparitions, because this is the bread and butter of this class. So you have to be prepared to look at all this stuff and really kind of think ahead of how you're going to use these. Now, one of the things that happens with this caster is you are not only a prepared caster, you're also a spontaneous caster. What that means is every day you have a spell list that you have to prepare from. So you can prepare, like on the chart says, at first level, 2 cantrips and 1 first level spell. Then you also get 2 spontaneous spells depending on your apparitions of cantrips, and 1 spontaneous casting depending on your apparition. Again, this is where it can get a little bit complex because you're not just setting your spells for the day. You also have the choices of other spells, and it'll make a difference, again, depending on what you're doing and where you're going for the day. As well, you have focus spells in this game. You get focus points, a focus pool, and depending on your apparition that you choose as your primary, you gain a focus spell from them. Now, this focus spell is called vessel spells. You're going to hear this a lot. Every single type of caster uses focus spells, but they're called something a little bit different, but they're still a focus spell. For each focus spell you have, you get 1 point in your focus pool. If you have 2 focus spells, you have 2 points, and you can cast either of your 2 spells twice. Then you have to refocus and get your points back, etc., etc. So just think, when it is called a vessel spell, it is still just a focus spell according to the basic rules. Now, at first level, you also choose an animistic practice that influences the way your power grows and develops. Think of this as your archetype, or for those coming over from 5e, your subclass. So the first one you have is your liturgist. Basically, you draw forth your apparitions through the power of song and dance, connecting the spiritual and the physical. These performances can be on your own creation, or they follow the specific rites of your religion. So at first level, you'll get the Song of Invocation. You can sing it out to your spirits and have them spin and twirl around you. You gain the Circle of Spirits, Feat. So again, all this stuff is going to be tied into that. At 9th level, you'd gain the ability called Dancing Invocation. And at 17th level, you'd call the Invocation of Praise. The next one is a medium. You're particularly good at acting as a conduit for spiritual energy. So your first invocation is the Invocation of Unity. The lines between your body and your apparition are blurry. You gain the Relinquish Control feat. So again, all these are feats at first level, and they're going to be based on it. We're going to go over feats in a little bit. And it's based on what you're taking as your animistic practice. At 9th level, you get dual invocation. At 9th level, you get dual invocation. And at 17th level, you gain the invocation of synchronization. The next practice is the seer. You're particularly sensitive to the presence and influence of spirits and undead. You can detect lingering spirits, offering you some defense against them. So first level, you get the invocation of sight. You shift your eyes easily into the spirit world, intuiting the needs of apparitions and other spiritual entities based on how they appear to you. You gain the Apparition Sense feat. You also gain a +1 status bonus on saving throws and ACs against the effects of haunts and the abilities of spirits and the incorporeal undead. At 9th level, you gain the Invocation of Protection. And at 17th level, you get the Invocation of Resilience. Next up is the Shaman. You form close bonds with your apparitions that allow you to invest them with the rare ability to take on a material form and directly affect the physical world. You have the Invocation of Embodiment at first level. You allow your apparition to inhabit your physical form. You gain this Spirit Familiar feat. At second level, you gain the Enhanced Familiar feat. So this is where I'm saying that it's kind of can feel a little bit like the Witch with the familiar, but it definitely has a lot more to it. At 9th level, you have Invocation of Growth. Your bond with the physical form of your chosen apparition grows stronger. You gain the Incredible Familiar feat. And at 17th level, you gain the Invocation of Otherworldliness. And then we see on page 16 all the different things that happen to you as you go up in levels. So again, your 3rd apparition, becoming an expert spell caster, weapon specialization, etc., etc. Again, you get your 4th apparition at 15th level, and you get your Supreme Incarnation at 19th level. Now, this is the big chunk. It starts at page 17 and goes for quite a while. These are the apparitions. There are a lot, but they have to. You have to have a lot, otherwise it'd be, I don't know, it just wouldn't be as good of a class as it is without having a lot of them. So they pile a ton into this book. When we look at the Crafter in the Vault, you'll see that you gain the architecture lore and engineering lore. Pretty much every single apparition will give you a skill. It's a lore skill always. So your secondary one will also give you this. So you'll end up pretty much with 4 lore skills. Now, although that sounds like a lot, and and when you have 4 of these apparitions, you'll end up with 8 lore skills. Lores don't come up as much as something like an athletics check or a thievery check or stuff like that. But what lore skills do is when there is a topic that deals with that lore specifically, normally the difficulty class, the DC of the check, is lowered by usually 2 and even more if you have that specific lore. So that's something to know. Now, the apparition spells. So this is when we're talking about the spontaneous casting. So as a cantrip, you'd be able to spontaneously cast Sigil. At first level, you could spontaneously cast Mending if you had the Crafter in the Vault. As you go up in levels, these are the spontaneous spells you can use. It also has a Vessel spell, again, your focus spell, which is Traveling Workshop, which is down below. There's also an Avatar form, which is much later in your class level to become part of this, and it gives you a quick breakdown of what that avatar does. So something like the Traveling is a focus spell. It is sustained up to a minute or 8 hours, etc. So this is the focus spell you'd be able to use if this was your primary. Now remember, you have to have the apparition as your primary to be able to use the focus spell. So you're going to end up with 1 point in your focus pool. Next one up is the Custodian of Groves and Gardens. You get farming lore, herbalism lore, and the lores are important as well because many feats state something like you must have farming lore or herbalism lore given to you by your apparition. So you're going to have to look at not only the feat, but what the prerequisites are, then go back and take a look at which one of these spirits gives you that lore. So like I said, there is a lot to this character that you have to be very well on top of to make sure things are working the way you need it to. The cantrips are Tangle Vine, Protector Tree, etc., goes up. Your Vessel spells, Garden of Healing. Your avatar is Peaceful Reaches. The Apparition Vessel, Guardian of Healing, basically allows you to cast a spell. The first time you sustain it, and each subsequent round, you generate a pulse of renewing energy. It heals creatures with an emanation for 1d4 hit points. The calm of this effect lingers. Once the spell ends, any creature that has been affected by its healing gets a +1 circumstance bonus to emotional effects for 10 minutes, but does not receive any healing from additional castings of the spell while the bonus persists. It's a 10-foot emanation, so it's not that big of a area. Next up, we have the Echo of Lost Moments. This one gives you fortune telling and genealogy. Cantrips are Figment, Deja Vu, Dispel Magic, a Curse of Lost Time, etc. The Vessel spell is Store Time. Avatar is Devourer of Lost Time. The Apparition Vessel spell itself is called Store Time. You can stay it up to a minute. You store time for later use when you cast a spell. The first time you sustain it each round, you gain a bonus reaction that you can use for any animist or apparition reaction that you have. As normal, this reaction is lost if you do not use it before you regain your actions at the start of your next turn. There are several feats that use the reaction from your apparition. That's where this would tie in. Again, lots of stuff you have to learn about this class as you're building it up and picking certain choices, certain class feats. Next up, the Imposter of Hidden Places. This gives you fortune-telling lore, underworld lore. Your cantrip is Telekinetic Hand and Ill Omen, Invisibility, Veil of Privacy, all that stuff. So it really doesn't matter a lot which is your primary for these spontaneous spells. You get them in your pool anyway. What it does matter, again, is your Vessel spell and any other abilities that you might need in the feats. This one's got a Vessel spell called Discomforting Whisper. It's a 5-foot emanation, will defense. You can sustain it. You're surrounded by an aura of spiteful murmurings that incite bad luck and punish failure. Then we have the Lurking Devourer in the Dark, which gives you ocean lore and sailing lore. Again, those lores matter with certain feats at higher levels. Your cantrips are Caustic Blast, Grim Tentacles, Acid Grip, etc., etc. Again, there's lots of stuff that you can look at for a really nice of spells that are, again, they're spontaneous. So you can choose which one you want to have and fire off at certain times, which I really do like, that you do get this kind of big mishmash of spontaneous, and then you can just buff it up with your own personal spells that you choose at the beginning of your day. Next one up is the Monarch of the Fey Courts. This apparition gives you the art lore and Fey lore skill. Tanglevine, Charm, Create Food, Enthrall, Suggestion, Hallucination, all the way up. It has the Vessel spell, Nymph's Grace. And of course, the avatar is the Queen of the Winter Court. All these ones are, you'll notice that one of the big things is all of them do pretty much the same damage, just different different types. So this one does 60-10 mental, where the other ones would do like 60-10 bludgeoning or et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like you get a ton of like, this is the absolute one to pick because this does the most damage. That sort of thing isn't really in there. They've balanced these out this way So you're not going to see an advantage of taking one over another, just depending on what you're doing for the day. So your avatar, your queen, which is a 60-10 plus mental, might not be great if you're going up against a whole bunch of constructs, which are pretty much immune to mental damage. Next up is the Reveler in Lost Glee. Again, you get circus lore and fortune-telling lore. I love those. Your cantrips would be prestidigitation, dizzying colors, laughing fit, hypnotize, confusion, all the way up to Wails of the Damned. Your vessel spell is Trickster's Mirrors, and you get the Ringmaster of the Dark Celebration. Your avatar is the Ringmaster of Dark Celebration. Again, when you look at this, it does 66-10 slashing. The range attack does 66 plus 6 acid. So again, the exact same damage across the board, just different styles of the damage itself. Just want to point out, Trickster's Mirror is basically mirror image for anyone who's ever played D&D. Pretty simple, and it has all the rules for what to do when that spell goes off. Next up, Stalker in the Darkened. This is forest lore, hunting lore. The spells are Gouging Claw, Runic Body, Vomit Swarm, Wall of Thorns, Bestial Curse, Moon Frenzy, Tangling Creepers. Honestly, this is probably one I would always be choosing as my apparition, just because those spells are really pretty solid. And I think those are good for the spontaneous ones. Your vessel spell is Darkened Forest Form, and you have the Beast of the Boughs. Next up is the Steward of Stone and Fire. This apparition has mountain lore. Volcano lore. Again, will come up in feats later. Has ignition, interposing earth, exploding earth, fireball, wall of fire, wall of stone, petrify, etc., etc. Again, another solid one to have, especially if you know you're going into a combat situation. This is definitely one you'd like to have for those extra spells, because having spontaneous fireball is really nice. Next up is the Vanguard of the Roaring Waves. This one also gives you mountain lore and river lore. This one has Rousing Splash, Hydraulic Push, good spell, Mist, Crashing Wave, Hydraulic Torrent, Control Water, etc., etc. The vessel spells River, Carving Mountains, and the Avatar, again, this one does bludgeoning damage on both its melee and its ranged attack. Next up, we have the Witness to Ancient Battles. This one here has Battlegrounds lore, which is interesting. Heraldry lore, I like that one. The spells are Shield, Sure Strike, Enlarge, Ghostly Weapon, Weapon Storm, and Invoke Spirits, Phantasmal Calamity, etc., etc. Again, a really good one if you know you're going into fights. This is a very good spirit to have hanging around with you. And that is it for the spirits. So like I said, there are an absolute plethora of these guys, which always makes it interesting. Again, this is why I think it's a pretty advanced class. I would not want to really saddle a brand new player with that many options, that many choices. It can get very confusing, especially for a brand new player, new to Pathfinder or brand new in general. This is one of the reasons I would suggest not running this. Also remember that these are supposed to be rare classes. I'm going to go over some of the feats. I'm going to pick out a few at each level that I really did like. Looking at this class, I'm not going to go over every single one. I don't want to be here for an hour, but let's take a look at a few of them that you get when you are at first level. So the one I really liked was Relinquish Control. I'm a big fan of free action abilities. And with that being a free action, your turn begins, your apparition takes over and shields you from outside influence. Until the start of your next turn, you get +4 status bonus to saves against spells and effects that give you the control condition or attempt to influence your actions, such as Charm Command or a Nozoi's Haunting Melody. However, the only actions you can take are to recall knowledge, step, strike, cast an apparition spell, cast a vessel spell, sustain a vessel spell, or use an action that has the apparition trait. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to all recall knowledge checks made using the lore skill granted by your attuned apparitions. So the one thing with this, though, is the special condition. This feat requires a particularly strong bond with a specific apparition to learn. Choose one apparition you have access to. Once you learn this feat, you must always choose that apparition as one of the apparitions you attune to each day. So remember that you always get to do 2. Relinquish Control, you'd have to pick one of these guys as your primary and one as your secondary. So this would always have to be part of your repertoire. This can make decision paralysis a little bit easier because you already know that you have this one that you're going to choose always, and then you just have to pick one more. That might make it a little bit easier. At 7th level, you pick 2 more, and then, at 15th level, you pick 4 total. At 2nd level, I liked Grasping Spirits. It is a single action. You can only do it once per 10 minutes. So that means you can only do it once in a combat. But gaining substance from your magic, your apparitions increase the range of your spells, which then pull your enemy closer. That's why I really like this one. If the next action you use is to cast a spell that has a range and targets one creature, increase that spell's range by 30 feet. As standard for increasing spell ranges, the spell normally has a range of touch. You extend this range to 30 feet. In addition to the normal effects of the spell, your apparitions briefly take on semi-physical forms and attempt to drag the target towards you. The target must attempt a fortitude saving throw against your spell DC. On a failure, is pulled up to 30 feet directly toward you. One of the things to remember is you could target your friends with this, like a heal spell. You could use Grasping Spirits, cast a 2-action ranged heal spell, which could bump up to 60 feet. You could tag that person for some healing and then actually pull them back 30 feet. The nice thing is they can choose to fail the fortitude save and you immediately pull them 30 feet. This can really help get someone who has been dragged away, who is well out of a combat that you don't want. You know, something bad might happen to them. You can pull them towards you. So this does work on both friend and foe. This is why I really do like this spell. At 4th level, again, I really liked Apparitions Enhancement. Again, free action. You can use it once per turn. But the requirement is your most recent action was to cast a non-cantrip spell. So this is your 1st level all the way through your 9th rank spells. Spiritual Power encases your weapon or unarmed attack until the end of your turn. One wielded weapon or unarmed attack you have deals an extra D4 spirit damage and gains a divine trait if it didn't have it already. So in other words, you could cast a 2-action spell and then with this fire it up, and you can then strike with your unarmed attack or with a weapon attack and do an extra D6 spirit damage on top of that. This would be a great combination of using a spell that has a saving throw and then using an attack. That way you do not get the multiple attack penalty on this strike, which is really nice, and it lasts until the end of your turn. So this is pretty much what it is built to do. You cast a 2-action spell, fire off, and then beat someone down with it. Again, it could be a 2-action spell to heal someone. And that is just really a fun way to add extra oomph to your character. At 6th level, I like the reaction Blazing Spirit. Again, it is only once every 10 minutes. You're only gonna be able to use this once. Trigger a creature damages you with a melee attack. Requirements: you're attuned to our apparition that grants Battlegrounds lore or Volcano lore as an apparition skill. And this is where I'm saying you have to really be careful with your feats, and then you might end up locking into certain apparitions because you need them to use your feats. So you do have to be very cognizant of the feature choosing, the creatures you like, your apparitions that you like, that you favor, to make sure that your character works the way it's intended. Your apparition grants fiery defenses. You gain resistance equal to your level. At this point, it'd be level 6 against the triggering damage. The triggering damage takes 1d6 fire damage and 1 persistent fire damage. This damage increases to 2d6 and 2 persistent at 12th, 3d6 and 3 persistent at 18th level. Those little 1s and 2s can really nibble away at things over time if they can't get rid of it. So it's not bad to add that on there. The other 6th level feat I liked was Roaring Heart. Now it is a 2-action. And again, you're required to be attuned to an apparition that grants mountain lore as an apparition skill. So you have to make sure that you're being careful what you choose. You surge forward inexorably. You stride twice. At any point during this movement, you can shove up to 2 creatures you pass adjacent to. When you end the movement, the turbulent spirits you are attuned to reward you for acting in an appropriately fierce manner. You and each ally within a 30-foot emanation gain temporary hit points equal to half your level, so 3, if you successfully shoved at least 1 enemy, or equal to your level if you successfully shoved both. These temporary hit points last until the beginning of your next turn. This leads into another feat later on. At 8th level, I liked Instinctive Maneuvers. Again, the prerequisite is to relinquish control, so that feeds off of other feats. When you allow an apparition to control your body, it might vent its fury against your foes. When you relinquish control, you add grapple, reposition, shove, and trip to the list of actions you can take. Your +2 circumstance bonus to the athletics check to attempt these actions. I do like the way that Pathfinder has feats stack on the other feats. They build on one another. It really makes the character very dynamic when you're building them. At 10th level, I liked Apparitions Quickening. It is a free action. Again, big fan of free actions. Frequency is once per round. Requirement is you're attuned to at least 2 apparitions. So if your next action is to cast a cantrip or a spell that is at least 2 ranks lower than the highest rank slot you have, you can draw power from one of your attuned apparitions to reduce the number of actions cast by 1, minimum 1. So you can't fire up a shield as a 0 action. The chosen apparition is dispersed until you can reattune to it at the next daily preparations, but you can't disperse an apparition this way if you would no longer be attuned to any apparitions afterward. So you can't do this twice and lose both of your apparitions. 12th level feat I liked was the Whisperings of Warning. Frequency, again, it is once per 10 minutes. You'd be hit, but not critically, by an attack. So your protective apparitions alert you to an incoming attack. The attacker must roll its attack a second time and take the lower result. Basically, this is in 5e giving it disadvantage, but that's a really nice little addition to it. At 14th level, I thought both of these ones were very situational. Banish Falsehoods of Flesh, is basically you attempt a religion check to counteract a polymorph effect currently on a creature within 30 feet of you. The target is temporarily immune to this for 1 day. The Cardinal Guardians, you focus your divine magic to allow your apparition to work in concert using the magic from one to weaken an enemy against the power of the next. Whenever you succeed at a spell attack with an apparition spell or vessel spell, or when a creature fails its save against such a spell, you gain a +2 status bonus to your spell attack modifier against that creature with the spells granted by any one of your other apparitions, and it takes a -2 status penalty to its saves against such spells. These benefits only last until the end of your next turn. Now, because these two are very situational, I mean, it's not bad to get the +2 status bonus to an attack or -2 to the saves. Until the end of your next turn, again, you have to be planning far enough ahead to do this. The Banished Falsehoods of Flesh, I mean, how many times are you going to have to counteract polymorph on a friend? This is where I would actually ignore the 14th level ones and look back on the 12th and the 10th, because you can go backwards and pick other feats. I would actually be ignoring these two and going back and looking lower levels for other feats that might come in a lot more handy. Now, at 16th level, I think all of them are actually very solid ones. So these are good choices. Unfortunately, you can't pick the 16th ones at 14th level because the 14th level ones aren't that good. So the first one at 16th level is Forest Heart. It's single action. Again, you have to be attuned to an apparition that grants forest lore or herbalism lore as one of its apparition skills. And remember, by 16th level, you will have all 4 of your spirits attuned, so you should be able to have this pretty easily. You adopt a stance that allows your apparition to channel spiritual energy down to the roots, controlling vines. The basics, you call forth roots, vines, and other plant growth native to the region and can use them to make unarmed attacks. These deal 4d8 bludgeoning damage. In the brawling group, have the finesse, grapple, and reach 30 feet traits. The attacks made with these unarmed do not gain additional damage from striking, but can benefit from the item bonus to attack rolls and property runes of hand wraps of mighty blows. So that's pretty cool. Jester's Gamble, again, single action. You're attuned to an apparition that grants you circus lore or fey lore. We know which one that is. You adopt a stance that makes your movements carefree and sublimely unpredictable, allowing you to move past impediments with ease and resist attacks and import of natural threats. You ignore difficult terrain and you gain resistance equal to half your level against damage dealt to you by animals, beasts, fey, fungi, and plants. A little more situational, but still not bad. The other 16th level feat, Monstrous Inclinations. I actually like this one. If I had to pick one, it'd probably be this one. Requirements, you're attuned to apparition against forest lore or ocean lore as one of your skills. Your apparitions share with you monstrous nature of those creatures who dwell in the deep seas or ancient woods. You add monstrosity form to your apparition spell repertoire, allowing you to cast it with your apparition spell casting. Now, as a special, if you're attuned to a stalker in darkened bows, add the phoenix form. If you're attuned to lurker in devouring dark, add the cave worm and sea serpent to your devouring dark form options. They cast the spell heightened to 8th rank. The last one, the 16th, again, a solid one, is Spiritual Spell Shape Stance. You feed excess magical power into your apparition, allowing it to grow ethereal limbs it can use to help and focus your spells. Once per turn while in the stance, you can use a spell shape feat that normally requires 1 action as a free action instead, but only to affect spells that deal spirit, vitality, or void damage. This doesn't allow you to avoid or bypass any other restrictions or limitations normally associated with the spell shape feat. I like that one. Also, Spiritual Spell Shape is a pretty solid one if for some reason you don't have spirits that are part of the prerequisites of the other 3 feats. This would be a solid choice to pick as well. But I think at this point with 4, you would have something that would nip one of those other ones. For 18th level, I like the free action Spirit Sacrifice. When you would die, again, I'll get to this in a second. The attuned apparition gathers energy it can through your shared bonds and uses that power to disperse itself while channeling the energy back into you, saving your life. You can use the Spirit Sacrifice even while unconscious or otherwise unable to act, otherwise it wouldn't work. Choose one apparition you have attuned to. You do not die. Your wounded condition is reduced to 1 if it would be higher, and you regain a number of hit points equal to twice your level. The chosen apparition is dispersed until you can reattune to it at your next day's daily preparations. Now, one of the things to note with this one would be very niche or absolutely useless if you're using mythic rules, because in mythic rules, you do not die per se. You would, when you hit your dying, you would literally come back at 1 hit point and you'd get the doom condition. So it, again, is very difficult to kill mythic creatures or mythic players. So this one wouldn't be as good as you would need unless you're not using the mythic rules. Then it's a very solid choice for an 18th level feat. 20th level, this is going to be the same thing. Eternal Guide is a feat that pretty much drags you back to a settlement that you have, population over 100. Basically, if you can't be revived within 24 hours, the spirit takes you back to your town with all your belongings that were on you. As long as you don't have anything, a contract with the devil or something that is taking that prevents you from being completely resurrected. It brings you back from death. Again, this one here will not be that critical if you're using mythic rules, because at 20th level and being mythic, you are likely very difficult to actually outright kill. You have to be dead a whole bunch of times so your doom condition drops down. You're dying to 0, which is 4 times you'd have to hit that, which is pretty rough. 20th level, it should never really happen. Once falling over during a combat, sure. 4 times before you can rest and remove the doom condition, I don't think it's going to happen. So depending on if you're using mythic rules or not, I would be looking at True Channel Spell, which gives you a single 10th rank spell slot that you can cast. And I would, again, that would be the difference between using mythic rules or non-mythic rules. All right, so that is it for my review of the Animist. And that's it for me today. I will see you all in the next video where I'm going to go over the Exemplar. If you're enjoying this content and would like to see more, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button, even hit that bell for notifications on my videos. What I'd like to know is in the comments is what you think of the Animist. Is it a class you would like to play? As a GM, something you would allow in your campaign? Would anyone want to play this? I think so. It's going to be very niche. It's very complex, but it also has a lot of flavor to it. And that's one thing that draws me to classes, is having this kind of flavor text to it. And I do really like that. Now, if you're interested in helping out the channel, you are more than welcome to join my Patreon or hit the membership for the YouTube channel. Both give you access to my Discord, special channels in there, plus some other perks that I'm working on as well. But in the meantime, in between time, that's it for me. May all your games be full of myth, mirth, and magic. Bye for now.